My Little Pony has so many details and such a massive world that it's only natural for the creators to hide a few things from the fans. Some are pretty minor, but others are seriously controversial, so stick around and we take a look at these hidden details. Hey beautiful people, I'm Julie. They removed Derpy from several episodes. After Derpy first appeared in the very first episode of season 1 with her distinctive eyes, the fandom was pretty divided. A lot of people loved her, but plenty of others criticized the character. Because of that, the show's creator ended up cutting Derpy from a bunch of episodes. She basically vanished for quite a while before eventually showing up again. Part of the reason she returned was because many fans felt she represented people with certain disabilities within the show. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, cause they had removed such a beloved character. She wasn't originally meant to be anything more than a background pony, but thanks to her unique appearance, she ended up getting a name and a whole lot of personality traits that she was never supposed to have. And if you didn't know, the way her eyes looked was actually a mistake. She was originally supposed to have normal eyes, not crossed eyes, but that little animation error ended up making her even more special to fans everywhere. Trixie was supposed to be the main villain. Yup, that was actually the original idea. Early on, the plan was very different, but it eventually changed, turning Trixie into more of a boastful antagonist who only made a brief appearance. Originally though, she was supposed to be the kind of villain who showed up in almost every season. In fact, Faust once mentioned that Trixie attended Celestia School for Gifted Unicorns. That means Trixie had exceptional magic talent from the very beginning, which would have helped establish her as a much more powerful and recurring villain in the series. The truth about Applejack parents. As most fans know, G4 never really addressed it. It never explained what happened to AJ parents, and we were given almost no information about them. In fact, if it weren't for Faust, fans might never have known that they passed away, because none of the writers or producers even brought it up in the series itself. For all we knew, they could have been living together in another farm, traveling around Equestria, or doing just about anything, cause as I said, the show never gave an official explanation. It was Faust who later clarified that they had died, and that's kind of frustrating when you think about it. We're talking about the family of one of the main characters here. It feels like the show could have spent at least a little time explaining what happened to them and given fans some closure, right? Faust's dislike of Equestria Girls. Faust has been very critical of Equestria Girls because the project was clearly created to capitalize on the popularity of Monster High and Ever After High at the time. Instead of focusing on a story that naturally fit in the world of My Little Pony, the concept shifted to a typical high school setting, a mostly normal world filled with teenagers, plus a few comic book style powers to make things more exciting. The whole idea was largely driven by merchandising. The goal was to create human versions of the main characters, similar to what Monster High and Ever After High were doing, and to sell more toys, of course. But the original creator of the show was never a fan of that direction. And to be honest, I think if Faust had been the one developing a project like that, she probably would have built a much stronger story around it. After all, she went on to create DC superhero girls, so a lack of creativity definitely wasn't the issue. You know what helps me to get creative though? Dropping a like in this video, it really helps me out a lot. Plot holes. Now, plot holes are pretty common in long-running shows, but the real issue here is that the writers basically acted like these inconsistencies never existed. For example, they gradually stopped using pinky scents, almost as if if Pinkie Pie suddenly didn't have the ability anymore? Then, out of nowhere, Twilight is afraid of ladybugs, and Rainbow Dash suddenly hates pies. Stuff like that just appeared without any real explanation, and whenever the fans pointed these things out, it felt like the creators just shrugged and acted like everything made perfect sense. Jeez. Twilight Sparkle was originally meant to be autistic. This was reportedly part of Lauren Faust's vision from the very beginning. Even in the first season, you can spot several traits in Twilight Sparkle that many people associated with the autism spectrum has. She's incredibly organized, hates when things don't go according to plan, and tends to become very deeply focused on specific interests. And according to this idea, the production team and Hasbro ultimately denied not to move forward with this, making that aspect of the character explicit. And honestly, that's a shame because it could have provided a kind of representation that was rarely seen in animated shows at the time, especially back in 2010 when the series first premiered. So Lauren Faust was able to keep some of the personality traits in the character, particularly during the first and second seasons, but since she left the show afterward, there's really no way of knowing how Twilight's character might have evolved if Lauren Faust stayed involved with the series. One extra detail I wanna add here: according to Lauren Faust, Pinkie Pie would have ADHD, just like Lauren Faust herself. In her view, it was supposedly so obvious that it didn't even need an official confirmation. And let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments. I'd love to hear you take and talk about it with you guys. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Lauren Faust's departure. We never really got a full explanation from the production aside about what happened. Most of what we know comes from Lauren herself talking a little about the situation. The people behind the show never really addressed it in detail, and they never publicly explained much about why she left. And honestly, that's kind of wild when you think about it. She created the show. This whole world started with her ideas, yet she was gone after the second season. The series went out for 9 seasons in total. It's pretty sad to think she ended up leaving because of creativity differences, with the production team wanting to take the story in a different direction than the one that she was envisioned. I don't know, but to me, that's a little heartbreaking. Everything began with her imagination, and without Lauren Faust, there's no doubt the show would have become the mass success that it did. Hasta la vista!